Hi everyone. In this tutorial, I will show you how to manage ISO 27001 Information Security Management System inside Jira using the SoftComply Risk Manager Plus app. You'll see how to assess risks, link them to assets and controls, track compliance progress, and ensure full traceability, all from within Jira. But first, why would ISMS matter and why would it matter to you? In today's business environment, information is one of the most valuable assets, whether you are a small startup handling customer data or a global enterprise managing intellectual property. A single security incident can lead to financial loss, regulatory fines, reputational damage, or loss of your customers' trust. That is why 27001 is important. It is the world's leading standard for building an information security management system. And it helps to identify your critical assets, to understand the risks that can be associated to these assets. You can also put in place the right controls to protect assets and, of course, continuously improve your security posture. But 27001 isn't just about avoiding problems. It's also about building trust. Customers, partners, and regulators increasingly expect companies to prove they handle information securely. For many industries like medtech, pharma, finance, and any SaaS product developers, 27001 certification is becoming a prerequisite for doing business, not just nice to have. Fortunately, 27001 is scalable. A small 10-person company can implement it just as effectively as a 20,000-person enterprise. The framework adapts to the size and complexity, so you won't have to be worried about under or over-engineering your security. Yes, you will need to go through external independent audits, but it is doable. Plus, the certification reassures your customers and stakeholders that you've taken information security seriously and aligned it into an international recognized standard. Unfortunately, a lot of companies believe that establishing an ISMS is all about writing beautiful policies to show an auditor. These policies alone won't protect you, I'm afraid. What you need is a live, asset-based risk register, the heart of ISMS, that allows you to stay on top of your information assets and any possible risks they might have. This register shouldn't be buried deep in some documents that you cannot find or spread across multiple Excel spreadsheets. Ideally, it should be implemented where your team is working every day, linked to periodic review tasks, and to their owners who get automatic notifications in case risks rise to critical levels. SoftComply Risk Manager Plus app on Jira Cloud helps you to monitor your compliance progress to the requirements of ISO 27001, build your asset library, and use the built-in controls library in the app. You can also pick and configure the available risk matrix and risk register templates that were specifically made for 27001. And you can also track coverage between your assets, risks, and controls in the in-app traceability matrix. Finally, you can generate the SOA automatically from the app when ready. But let's dive into Jira and see how you can build your 27001 compliant asset-based risk register by first identifying your assets, then defining the associated risks, and thirdly, linking the appropriate controls to the risks that you have already identified while using the ready-made templates and built-in asset and controls libraries. Okay, let's look inside Jira and see how you can build your ISMS and your asset-based risk management with the help of SoftComply Risk Manager Plus app. One of the very first things that you have to do when you're setting up your risk project is to define your risk acceptability criteria. And this is done by choosing and configuring the risk model. Risk Manager Plus app comes with various different templates for information and cybersecurity risk management, including ones for 27001. But before you start configuring your asset-based risk table that we can see here, you should configure the settings for your information security risk management. Inside the Risk Manager Plus app, there are multiple templates that you can pick from. So in the templates library here inside the app, you will be able to see that there are 27001 templates, but also some for medical device coordination group for cybersecurity risk management, for FTA cybersecurity risk management, as well as NIST. In these templates, you will be provided, once you enable them, to use the 93 controls defined in the 27001 in your asset-based risk register. And you will also be able to use and further configure the asset register for your assets. Unless, of course, you're using Jira Assets, which is also fine, and you can link that to the asset-based risk management. Now that you have enabled this, we can go back. And like we said, the first thing you always have to do in the risk management process is to set up your risk model. And in the templates of Risk Manager Plus app, you will find a template called InfoSec. This is the 27001 Compliant Information Security Risk Matrix. It is a classical 5x5 risk matrix with 2 iterations. So you have the first risk assessment, and after mitigation, you have the second risk assessment. We can call them inherent and current, but you can define them further if you need. Let's leave it to inherent and current at the moment. You can then further customize the risk characteristics. In here, we have the consequences and likelihood and the 5 levels for each of the characteristic. Finally, you will have the risk levels, and this is where the risk acceptability comes to play. You can choose where the risk levels apply. If, for example, a risk is catastrophic and happens frequently, it is definitely a high risk, but you can further customize these levels based on your risk acceptability criteria in your organization. Defining this risk model provides you a consistent framework for scoring the likelihood, consequences, and the risk levels across your organization so that you can actually compare risks when they are assessed. We have now set up the risk model, and the second step is building the asset-based risk register. Again, here in the app, you have different templates, and you can choose the information security risk template. Here we are in the asset-based risk register inside one of the projects in Jira. In the risk table, each row represents an information security asset. For each asset, you are able to link a risk to it and then assess that particular risk. You can assess that risk through the inherent consequence and likelihood that we set up in the risk model first. And automatically, the app will calculate the resulting risk class, be it high, medium, or low. Once that is done, and when the risk is on an unacceptable level, you will have to put in place controls to mitigate it. And in this column, you will have the different 93 controls as defined in 27001 standard. Once you have the controls in place, you can also describe exactly how these controls work in the mitigation notes. You then have their current or the second risk assessment once the mitigations have been applied to understand if the risk has been reduced from unacceptable level to a lower level. And you can also check that on the first column of the table here, where it says risk progress, and you can quickly see that most of the risks that were identified here have already been mitigated from high to low level, except for one that has not been assessed at all, neither in inherent risk assessment iteration nor in the residual one. So this is how a very simple asset-based risk register looks like. And you can customize it further any way you want. And you can also, instead of using the in-app assets, you can also use Jira Assets here. So this was part 2. After the risk model, you can set up your asset-based risk register. And we are now moving to the third part, which is the checklist. We brought the 27001 checklist also into Jira. In here, you have all the requirements of 27001, the explanation or description of that requirement to understand what exactly needs to be described. And you can also tie it then to Confluence pages or to the asset-based risk register in Jira. You can mark completion as you go, which makes internal audits and certification preparation much smoother. In addition to this checklist, have traceability matrix inside the app. It's another powerful feature, and it shows you the coverage between assets, risks, and controls. If the risks have been linked to controls, and if all the assets have been analyzed in terms of risks, and what percentage is covered. For example, in this particular project, 66% of risks are covered, while 33% are still not linked to assets. This traceability matrix ensures that you don't miss anything when it comes to completion and implementation of 27001. All this comes together when you look at the risk dashboard risk model, because in here you see that you originally had 2 medium level risks and 3 high level risks, and after mitigation, after controls were placed, all the risks have been moved to lower level except for one that has still to be assessed. So this also provides a very quick view in the risk model view, in inherent and current risk model, either in the data table under the model or inside the model itself, of where you are exactly. And finally, you can generate the SOA out of the app itself. You can provide the statement of applicability to your auditor once you have done everything. This dashboard gives both management and auditors a very clear view and a real-time picture of where your information security risks are and what is the compliance status at the moment. With SoftComply Risk Manager Plus, you can move away from the scattered spreadsheets and manage your risks, assets and controls seamlessly within Jira. This makes your information security program not only easier to manage, but also more transparent, collaborative, and audit-ready. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us and we'd be happy to walk you through how to build your ISMS in Jira. Thanks again, and good luck with your 27001 journey. Bye-bye.